I'm Paul Stusiak, Chair of the Transport Workgroup, and I'm going to give an update on what's happened since our last meeting in the fall. So here we go. That's me. Hooray. Let's move on to the other workgroup chairs who are actually in the room. Some of you, I see some of you out here now that before the spotlights came on. We've got Sergio. I don't think Eric's at the, no, I'm going to get you to stand up at the end. Sorry. Rick is here, probably here somewhere. And Dan I think had to leave today. Oh, there you are. Thank you. Sorry, it's hard to see into the lights there. Eric, I just saw Eric a few moments ago. He's here somewhere. Thank you. And Joseph, I saw he's right over there. These are the chairs and vice chairs of our other working groups that put in so many hours and help make all of this happen. It was really gratifying to me. The two sessions this morning where we had people talking about how they were using the standards that we've worked for quite a while on to build new products and new businesses. And then, of course, we've got Josh, who's out there somewhere in the streaming land, who does so much work to make all this happen and keep us on track and keep it moving forward. I believe he's probably writing code right now while he's watching this. So what are these groups? A very brief summary of the groups and what we do on this side of the fence. There's the data dictionary that works, Rob and his subgroups that work on the actual terms and types of the fields that we use in our data. And on the transport side, we deal with actually getting it from point A to point B. We deal with writing certification, defining certification tools that are written by Josh and his team, and then the rules that are run by the certification tools come out of the certification group. Analytics, we get so much interesting information out of the certification process that we're now being able to use it to feed it back into the standard and help drive our standard from actual data in the field that tells us, is this something we need to talk about? And then one of our favorites, which is later today, we have pain points where we're going to try and capture some feedback from people who are actually trying to use the standard in the field and identify some things on Thursday when we're going to go through and try and build some things that we're going to talk about in our new roadmap. So today, we're going to go back and look at what has happened since the fall conference, roadmap, certification updates, and analytics updates. The last one I think is pretty short today. On Thursday, we've got 2 hours, roughly 2 hours. The short agenda is we've got an actual work group meeting where we're going to continue to tackle ad edit with media, which is a very important part of this that I know a lot of people are interested in us getting it done. Metadata resources, telling people about what the systems are offering. And then we're going to, like I said, spend an hour working some of those pain points to turn them into actionable items for the work groups. So we have been very busy. Since the last conference, we've ratified Data Dictionary 2.0, and this is collectively, not just transport, Web API Core, Common Format, and Entity Events. We had another run at that when we had some people come in and start implementing it. They discovered a couple things in the standard that could be improved, which we went back and fixed as well. We also ratified, webhooks, validation expressions. You heard people talking about that up on the panels this morning. And then finally, released it yet again into the wild, ad edit, which we also heard on the panel, and Sergio's clapping his hands. Yes, I mentioned to somebody, it feels like this morning felt like an overnight success that's only taken, I don't even want to say how many years it's taken, a lot of years. But actually having people in the field use some of these things is very gratifying for people in the work groups. All right, there's more. So in the work that we do, we also find things that we need to send back to Data Dictionary to evaluate and turn into part of the data dictionary standard. So we came back with a number of things that have gone back to them for review. Single feeds, very important. People are talking about that quite a bit. Things that are important to transport in particular that need support in data dictionary are metadata resources. And metadata resource and locale support. I think Sam mentioned earlier, we've got some international groups using the standard. So being able to allow them to use the standard in their native language is very important, and we've identified a couple things that need addressing there. And then something that we didn't think about when we started this is as time goes on, the things that we look at today may become deprecated, but they still might be useful in a search. You're not going to be able to search them, but you're going to get them back. So we need to have a mechanism to handle fields that get deprecated over time and just explain to everybody how it works, how you use it. So that's a couple of the things. But in addition to all that, we've also been working on things in the groups. We have add edit. There are some challenges with add edit with media. A lot of MLSs have a rule that one of the first things that has to go in is a picture of the front door. In fact, you might not even be able to enter your record into the system unless it has that photo. There are a couple of challenges we've faced with our underlying standard of OData, but we've come up with a path forward that we're going to use add edit with media using OData streams. We did that at, I'll talk about that in a minute. And then we've got the universal property identifier. We've basically kicked this around for a while, but I think we've come up with a plan to move this into part of our standard. And all of these slides will be up with active links after the conference, so if there's a particular one that you're interested in, don't feel too pressured to write it down quickly. And then unique licensee identifiers. So agents are licensed in many states, and having a way to express that across regions and across MLSs is useful. But there's more. We've got something called entity events already, but we'd also like to make it possible for you to subscribe to these, so giving you the ability to have push notifications so that you can find out when things change. We have many users in consumers of data products who have some challenges in keeping systems synchronized using only timestamps. So this is one way that we'd like to offer to them to make it easier for them to keep in sync. Less resource requirements on the MLS or the provider side, the server side, and all the data looks much better. And then a couple other things that might be of interest is refresh tokens. In the standard, we've written it so you can limit who can access the endpoints that you expose your data on. One thing that's not clearly spelled out is how you deal with refreshing those tokens over time. So we're going to tackle that and nail that down. And then we've talked about this, which currently I don't think is on the roadmap as a formal item, but has been one of those pain points that people have talked about for years and years, is there are several related resources out there, like state and city. If you cover the nation or a good chunk of the nation, your pick lists for things like states and then the cities in that state really needs to be narrowed down. You don't want to do 50 states worth of cities in one pick list, because that would be thousands, and that's not very useful. So we need to expose and describe what a related resource is. Property and property subtype is also another example of that. So RESO as an organization creates a roadmap. It's 2 years long, and we work in, obviously, the earlier year. And it gets updated in the fall. And I'm only going to talk about the transport side of things. There's also parts that are data dictionary, parts that are organization. Those elements that go into the roadmap come from the people in this room and the people back on the stream, where they're saying, hey, I need something addressed. So we're putting those into the roadmap. So pain points today, pain points on Thursday might result in new roadmap items for the 2025, 26 roadmap. And it happens two ways. One is through discussion, but then all those discussions we're trying to turn into a little bit more formalized approach where you put that as a posting in our repository, so the transport forum should have that information available so you can look back and say, hey, what were we thinking when we said we needed to do this? So that's part of the community that's driving this. So it's not Josh, it's not Paul, it's not Sergio saying we need to do this. It's feedback from you in the room who are saying we need to do something about this. So Pain Points is a great session to attend and bring some of those things up. I'm going to say it like 7 times today, I think. Thanks, Rick. I'll be there for you. Let's move on to some certification updates. So I mentioned earlier that with our certification analytics, we're gathering information and being able to make informed decisions about what needs to be standardized further. Excellent example is architectural style, the house type, colonial, and of course now I've forgotten all of them, Cape Cod, that kind of thing, bungalow. Because we're able to capture that information and turn it into something usable, the aggregates are being passed back to the data dictionary. The data dictionary looks at it, they make some determinations, discussions, and come up with a new enumeration, which used to be, you put anything you want in there. Now it's going to be, here's the base set of common names for these things. As an MLS, you can still add your local enumerations that mean something to your local market, but now we've at least got a chance that if somebody is on a national portal of some sort and they want to search for a bungalow, they will get back bungalows across the country, not just in the area where bungalow is, the term is used. So I think that's really important to stress that we're trying to make this more data-driven. I'm sure there's a book somewhere, I'm sure there's a business book somewhere where it's, if you don't care about it, you don't measure it. So if you measure it, you should care about it. So we're measuring this and we care about it. So we want to drive the standard through actual meaningful data that's being captured from the industry itself as well. One of the things we've noticed is over time, and Fast Track Subgroup is actually part of Data Dictionary, but I bring this up because it does have impact on the Transport Workgroup. As we write certification rules and certify various systems out there, we find things out. We didn't think about this data element that's really important. It's not being tested in the right way. Rather than wait for a new data dictionary release or new certification rules to be slowly generated over time, the Fast Track Workgroup is trying to tackle that and address those concerns right away so that we can get them into the system, get them into certification, get them into your hands as quickly as possible. So among the things they're doing, I'm not going to read this out, but among the things they're doing is tackling the top elements first, right? So we've got enumerations, they're quite large. I think it's nearly, forget the number, but it's a big number of enumerated fields, and they're tackling the top 20 to try and identify things that are missing, things that are important to have. And all of this is happening within the data dictionary where the experts from MLSs and vendors are there to be able to say, yeah, that makes sense. That's the way we call it. That's what we should all call it. So we've got certification rules and certification analytics and fast track, and everybody is working together to try and get all this tested. So we've done a number of things where we are trying to more closely align to related standards like ISO and ANSI and various other ones, which makes a lot of sense. We've got a lot of people doing this work in other working systems. We should use those standards in our systems. As well, we've also got some things that are related that we didn't really address properly to start with. So things like property type, property subtype. Land probably does not have single-family detached associated with it. So we should express that properly. So we're using the data to inform the standards and using that to make the standards better. So of interest to transport, although not specifically related to it, is Data Dictionary is going to move to an annual release. So they're going to pick 3 top items that they need to work on, get that work done, release in the fall, and draft in the fall, release in the spring. But for us in transport, that means by August of this year, those items you saw earlier that are Data Dictionary related have to be into the Data Dictionary by August of this year to make next year's Data Dictionary release. It also means our certification group needs to start on the rules to test those almost immediately. And we've already got a plan in place to get those into the Data Dictionary in a hopefully digestible form that they can work on and have it completed by our next meeting in the fall. I'm not sure if Sam is doing a talk on this, but there is a lot of work going on by Josh and his team to improve the reports and have value-added reports for certification analytics. We've already seen and had presentations about how people are using it and can use it now to identify, can I move into this market? I depend on it having square feet, and is that square feet available? Bill rates, availability rates, those kinds of things are important to have. And these are the three types of enhanced reports that are going to be coming out very soon. And I hesitate to say very soon because that puts pressure on people who aren't standing on the mic right now. But I think it's probably going to be by the summertime we'll see these coming out and start to be in people's hands. All right. One more thing happened since our last meeting. We had an in-person developers workshop in Bellevue, Washington. Thanks a lot to Rick and Constellation One for hosting that and giving us a place to meet. I think we had a pretty good attendance there physically and online, so we did it hybrid. We got a couple of items done, and somebody was saying, I didn't feel like we got anything done. But these types of meetings are important to understand what other people's concerns are about things we'd like to turn into a standard. So I think it was very useful in that we were able to, as earlier mentioned, decide on the course forward for Edit with Media, OData streams. We went over the work we had been doing on entity event and initialization of systems, which is a big issue for a lot of people. We have had many conversations with people who would like a better way to handle the initial loading of so you get a new vendor, the new vendor needs to pull all your data. We've got rate limits in place. You can't pull 50,000 records a minute. You might only be able to pull 5,000 records a minute. How can we advertise that? How do I know before I start what I can expect from this system? So we're talking about how we can handle that kind of rate limiting. We don't actually have a way of advertising that right now. We also talked about the unique organizations. So in some cases, we've got data shares, and what does it mean when you get data from a data share and also from the MLS? How do we know whose should take priority? And obviously, the MLSs should, because that's the one that got updated first. But we don't currently have a good way to express that in either the data or the expectation of anything transporting the data. So we need to do some work on that. We came away from it with a couple of action items, 3 that I've highlighted here. And we're going to be working on those in our regular monthly meetings. So we have at least 2 meetings a month, one for certification and one for the main transport work group. So we'll keep working on those. We will probably, in one moment, I think my next slide, yes. We'll probably have a summer developers conference, but it will only be virtual. So we'll book some of your time for a day or a day and a half get you to sit down on a Zoom call, and we'll hash out some of the issues that we've been working on to try and get this completed for the fall in-person meeting in Frisco. A couple of things that Josh asked me to mention here. There's some new skills and training materials coming. Red Tea is coming soon. I'm not going to commit, again, somebody who's not here to it, but I would expect to see this probably by third quarter. It's a companion to Red B, which will give your technical side, your business analysts, maybe some of your new developers, especially new developers who don't really have any real estate knowledge. It can be quite, there's a lot of little things in this industry that, someone coming in doesn't get right away. So having a way to help them discover how to use the standards better, how to be able to understand what's going on, I think will be really helpful for a lot of technical people. That's still not going to prevent your developers or remove the need for your developers to actually read the specifications themselves, but hopefully it'll help guide them in how they do that work. And your business analysts can get a better understanding of how the technical side of RESO and their standards work. There's also a couple other big pieces that are coming. The first one up there is how do you actually implement these things? So we want to make it easier for people who are trying to implement during certification. How do I get through certification? How do I build a data dictionary compliant system? Lots of people have already done this, so that's great. We'll be looking for your input, but not everybody's there. So we want to be able to build some further information and resources for you to be able to get going faster. This is going to be posted on the main RESO website, the 3 pieces, certification guide, probably starting just with data dictionary, but we might need to put one out for transport as well. And then a knowledge base similar to what is being expressed in the data dictionary wiki, but focused on how to get through certification. You run into a problem, what's something I need to do to get around the problem? How do I get certified properly? And then finally, and this is where the community is going to have input into this, is some blueprints. The idea with this is to be able to write some guidelines, papers for people who need to implement a specific thing. I've got an example of, a couple things that might be possible and showing how would I implement that. Transaction and offer management, people have been talking about that again quite a bit at this meeting. Added business cases like maybe how do I update a floor plan? What concrete steps do I need to take to capture the floor plan from the vendor who's providing the floor plan and get it into the standard itself, or into my implementation of the standard itself? We'll be looking to the community to guide us with this. These are really meant to be not broad, how do I do add edit? It's more tactical, aspect-oriented. How would I go about doing a simple add edit application that would let me update remarks, price, status, something like that? But we want feedback from the folks in the room. What sorts of things would you be looking for? So pain points might be a good place to surface that. Was that 7, Rick? I think it's almost 7 now, isn't it? Yeah. So the idea is the community is going to drive the blueprints, but we've got a couple ideas of where to start. I'm getting near the end of my talk. I'm going too fast. We've had a number of contributions recently, some of them quite substantial. We heard people earlier today talk about the rules and validation expressions. Zenlist very kindly donated the rules playground, which if you haven't played with is actually kind of fun to figure out how my business rule might actually work with the validation expression. And then test code, open source their test code for unit tests for building a validation expression engine. And that's up in the RESO repository. I think it's in RESO. Well, the link goes to the right place. And it's interesting from my perspective because they have written it in Rust, and I'd like to get a little bit more Rust exposure. So they seem to be quite on that. So I'm looking forward to tearing through that. But we really appreciate the fact that they open sourced this and provided it to the community for us to use. Now I'll ask the chairs and vice chairs, and it doesn't have to just be transport chairs. If you could please rise and wave to the crowd so that they can look around. Sergio, come on, man, up you get. Joseph, please, up. None of this happens without, and where'd Dan go? Is he still here? He's disappeared. None of this happens without our chairs who put in hours and hours of work in organizing this, giving technical leadership. I really appreciate the work they do, and I don't think we get to thank them enough, so I wanted to make special note that I appreciate what you do, and I think the community does too. We've also had a couple of individual contributors to our transport discussions who have helped drive the standard forward in the last 6 months. Jeff Rispin, I see him right there with his head down, probably fixing something. Yeah, if you want to stand up. And I don't know if Brian's here. Brian Burgers? No, he's not. Okay. So both of those people were instrumental in moving things forward, some very technical discussions. The ad edit with media, Jeff has been working enormously on and brought it to a much better state. And then Brian was doing a lot of instrumental work around validation expressions. Excuse me. And then we had, excuse me, some other community contributors. Jeff again, Brian again, Eric Finley, who I don't think is here. Paul Hethman is here somewhere. There he is. And then Pooja Kapoor. I just want to make sure that we recognize the work that you've done and helped make the standard better. So, all right. So I think I'm coming to the end here. I am at the end. A little bit too fast, but that's okay. You guys can use the time to answer email. Any questions you have, please talk to one of the chairs. We love to hear your feedback. Go to the pain point session this afternoon. That's a great place to hear how other people are interacting with the standards. And then, of course, Josh quickly answers mail at info@reso.org, particularly of the most technical nature. So that's it.